Hello guys, the Maniac Zach here, and welcome back to another episode of Knockout Reviews. Today, I want to take a look at the newest IP from Nintendo, ARMS. Now, this game was revealed at the Nintendo Switch presentation all the way back in January, and it seemed interesting. But when I played the global test punch beta a couple months ago, I was skeptical, because it was unbalanced and lackluster. But now that the final version of the game is released, does it still have these problems? Will ARMS do for the fighting game genre what Splatoon did for the shooting genre a couple years ago? Let's find out.
Round 1. Story.
Unlike the majority of fighting games, ARMS doesn't really provide that much lore for its universe and characters. Now this would be acceptable because fighting games are mainly about the gameplay, but ARMS is no ordinary fighter. All of the characters have these long and stretchy arms, and according to the recent ARMS Direct, none of them remember how or why they got them. And not much backstory is given to these characters except a small amount in the Grand Prix mode. This really sucks because the characters are so unique and stand out from one another that I really want to know more about them, but I can't. Therefore, the only purpose for these characters to fight in the Grand Prix is to be the new champion. What? How did Nintendo screw up one of the staples of fighting games, giving the characters a motivation so players can connect with them? We didn't need NetherRealm Studios like story per se, but it would have been nice for us to know some more information of these characters and the ARMS universe itself.
Round 2. Audio and Visuals.
The majority of the music in ARMS is pretty mediocre. While this is fine because it helps players focus on the fight itself, take a look at Smash Bros. That game has so many songs that can drive the adrenaline rush that is needed for players to compete against each other. Or in the case of Street Fighter 2, it can make the characters more memorable. One of the few exceptions to this though is the main theme itself. Holy crap. Not only is it catchy enough to listen on the title screen for hours on end, but it really captures what ARMS is all about. Its vocals and other instruments remind me that ARMS is supposed to be a fun sporting event and not a fight to the death like other fighting games. Similarly, the visuals of this game are fantastic. All of the fighters that ARMS has to offer have their own distinct design that brings out the personality really well. Whether if it's the Japanese influence in Ninja or the ramen noodles in Min Min's arms, every character has something interesting about them that makes me want to play as them. ARMS' fighters really remind me of Overwatch and how unique its characters are. The game looks even better when you consider the colorful graphical style that is present in the whole game, even in the menus. It's that certain Nintendo look that stands out in a world where most modern games focus on being hyper-realistic with dark colors. While the audio of the game may be lackluster, ARMS looks beautiful with its art style while running at 1080p and 60 frames per second, so the visuals make up for it. Let's see if the gameplay can have the same effect as the visuals.
Final round. Gameplay.
ARMS is a unique type of fighting game that we haven't really seen before. Unlike how the majority of them are 2D, or allowed to sidestep in 3D like Tekken, ARMS is a fully 3D arena fighter. No matter if you're punching with either arm, dashing, or using a flurry rush, your movements in ARMS are easy to execute and can be used to create your own combos. Blocking is the only exception though. It can be a pain in the butt to execute, no matter if you're clicking in the left stick with the Pro Controller or facing the Joy-Cons toward each other. It's like other fighting games since you have to be completely still to do it, but it just feels too slow here. And that's basically it for what you can do. Aside from your arm combinations, your moveset is pretty limited in this game. While having a small amount of options does make it more accessible, it makes it feel slow at some moments. The only time that the game doesn't feel too slow is when you're using motion controls or if you're in a high difficulty for Grand Prix, which I'll mention later. But speaking of motion controls, since they're advertised as being the main way to play ARMS, are they any good? Absolutely! It is so satisfying to feel like you're actually punching someone with the Joy-Cons, and they work really well. However, I would recommend using a Pro Controller or Joy-Con grip instead, since I feel like I have more control of what I'm doing, and blocking is even worse with the Joy-Cons. The worst part about the controls though is that there's no button mapping for any controller you use. This really sucks, especially for people who are coming from other fighting games and want to change it to something they are more used to. But at least Nintendo gave us more options for people who don't like motion controls at all. unlike a recent game that only used them. Most of the stages are not just filled with flat arenas with cool backgrounds, but instead filled with their own obstacles that actually change the way you need to approach your opponent. For example, in Twin Tail stage, jumping out of the cars causes you to gain a great height advantage that you can use to grab opponents from above. These obstacles are a huge innovation for the fighting game genre, since they are normally used to deal a little more damage like in Mortal Kombat, or used for gimmicks like in Smash Bros. If these stages were just huge empty arenas, the game would have been a lot less enjoyable. Not only the stages, but the characters in ARMS have their own special attributes that makes them unique. For example, when Ninjara dashes in the air, he warps like a Dragon Ball Z character. These attributes mean that the character roster has the most variety out of any fighting game I have seen, since no two characters play the same. Anyways, ARMS has few but highly packed game modes, so I'll go over each one briefly. There's the Grand Prix mode, which is like the arcade mode in other fighting games. Here, you face off against 10 opponents, with the final one being Max Brass, who will be playable in the future as DLC. However, if you choose difficulty 4 or higher, Headlock will fuse with Max Brass to create a really challenging boss fight. Overall, the Grand Prix mode is solid, especially since it is one of the best ways to earn coins to spend on the arms getter, which I'll explain later. And some of the matches are replaced with fun minigames, which helps mix up the gameplay a little. What's surprising is that the CPUs are actually pretty tough in this mode, even in lower difficulties like 3 or 4. Headlock especially, since he has a huge advantage over you with his 6 arms. Having difficult CPUs is awesome, because Nintendo hasn't made their games this challenging in a long time, other than Breath of the Wild. And they make the gameplay more enjoyable, since it's so satisfying to win when you have barely more health than someone and the timer runs out. The Versus mode of the game contains the rest of the single player content and all of the game types ARMS has to offer. First, there's Fight, which is basically just a 1 versus 1 fight against a computer opponent where you need to try and deplete their health down to 0. This mode is in pretty much every other fighting game, so it's self-explanatory. Then, there's Team Fight, which is like Fight except it's a 2 versus 2 match, where you and your teammate are tied together. This is my least favorite mode in the entire game, especially online, since being stuck to your teammate means that you can get pulled into an onslaught of attacks, which you can't prevent from being in. While it promotes teamwork, since you can get hit easily by your teammates' punches, it's rare to have fun in this mode in my opinion. ARMS also offers a few fun mini-games, like V-Ball. V-Ball is basically like volleyball, where you have to prevent a ball from landing on your side of the court. It has a neat twist to it, where the ball eventually shrinks and falls to one side of the turf if it's in the air for too long. Another one of these fun modes is Hoops, which is like basketball but better. Instead of shooting balls, you have to grab your opponents and throw them into the net to get points. It's one of my favorite modes, but I wish it could change the amount of points it could go to, since 10 is a little too low. Then there's Skill Shot, where there are targets that pop up in this stage, and they need to be hit consecutively to rapidly gain points. Although it's nice to grab your opponent and get the chance to get more targets, I wish this mode was a little more fun, since I can't seem to win it that often. Remember the 100 Man Smash in the Smash Bros games? ARMS is a similar mode with 1 versus 100, but it's not as fun. Similar to that mode, you have to defeat 99 of these blob things and face headlocks with the final opponents. As for this review, I haven't beaten it yet, since the difficulty spikes up way too high when headlock shows up. If you're unsure about what new arms you want for your favorite character, then there's the ARMS test. Here, you get to try a random selection of arms, and use them to beat an opponent in a quick match. This is a nice change from the normal 1 versus 1 fights, since you can try arms from characters that you would normally never use. Like Smash Bros, ARMS has its own training mode, except it's more of a tutorial on how to do certain mechanics for the game itself, such as grabbing rather than a practice mode. It can be helpful to new players at some moments, but I wish it was a more fleshed out tutorial mode or regular practice mode. ARMS mainly focuses on the online multiplayer, but only with 3 types: Party Match, Ranked Match, and Friend Lobbies. Party Match is a lot like the For Fun mode in Smash Bros. Wii/3DS. Here, items are turned on and the gameplay modes are frequently rotated and mix the gameplay up. Playing this mode can be pretty fun except for Team Fight, which caused most of my anger with ARMS in the first place. But Ranked Match is a completely different story. Especially since you need to unlock it, you have to beat the Grand Prix on level 4 difficulty or higher. This requirement is excellent, since it tells players that they have to challenge themselves if they want to be seriously competitive online. Once you unlocked it, you'll find that you're only in 1 vs 1 matches with items turned off, and have 2 rounds instead of the 1 round in party match. These changes allow the players to focus on their skill rather than just using items to their advantage. Rank mode is where arms can be the most fun, especially since you need to think about the arms you need to add to your layout to use in that battle. Lastly, you can easily create a lobby for your friends to join, similar to the tournament mode in Mario Kart 8. However, while you can change the rules during gameplay, they're more limited than the rules in the single player versus mode, such as not being able to set how many rounds you need to win a match. Shouldn't it be the other way around, since you get the chance to set it the way that you want to have fun with your friends? What were they thinking? Overall, the online in ARMS is really solid. I only got disconnected once for a communication error, and finding matches is fast and easy. But because of how frustrating it can be to play, I would recommend playing Grand Prix on high difficulties first to get used to the mechanics of the game and gain a lot of coins to unlock new arms. Speaking of which, each character has 3 arms by default, but more can be unlocked with the Arms Getter. This is a fun minigame where the more coins you spend for a higher timer, the greater amount of arms you'll get. There's a higher chance that you'll unlock new arms for the character you use, but you can still unlock arms for other characters too. I wish this mode was simpler, because it's disappointing when I get an awesome arm, but for a character that I don't even use. What's good about these new arms that you unlock is that it can change the way you play as your character, since some arms can do special effects when they're charged up, such as the Megawatt being able to shock opponents for a short time. Now, let's wrap this up with my final thoughts on this game, shall we?
Match results.
ARMS is a great attempt to stand out in the fighting game genre and innovates with its gameplay alone. However, there were some things that prevented it from being so, such as how the single player content is decent, but the game mainly focuses on online multiplayer. So if you suck at online multiplayer, or if you get bored with the single player content, you really don't have that many other options. It's not the amount of the single player content that's the problem, but the fun factor of it. Don't get me wrong, ARMS can be really fun when playing online, with friends, and in high difficulty Grand Prix modes. And being frustrated in online is common for pretty much every other online multiplayer game, like Halo.
Alright, nice job, Ellie. No! Where the f was I supposed to go then? See, I don't know maps.
And no fighting game is perfectly balanced. But the game makes it so if you want the most enjoyment out of it, you have to grind on the highest difficulty Grand Prix with your favorite character and get a lot of arms for him or her to use in ranked. So if you're looking for a fun multiplayer experience and don't want to be competitive, you'll get it, it just won't be as enjoyable as, let's say, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Hopefully in a sequel we'll be able to do more with these fighters, like kick in the air or do a counter, since Melee offered more options for what you can do for your fighters compared to Smash 64. So, the final verdict for this game is a 7.5 out of 10, or an uppercut. Oh! Honestly, I wish that Nintendo spent a little more time fleshing out the single player content and tweaking out the balance in a little bit, especially since the game seems very rushed for being one of Nintendo's biggest and newest IPs. And the slow pace and times of boredom almost made me give this game a 6 out of 10. But luckily, the vibrant visuals and uniqueness from the fighting game genre prevented me from doing so. Anyways guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, since I'm going to a camp for 2 weeks after this video is released, and I'm not going to have time to work on any more videos until I'll get back. But if you want to know when those future videos are released, then be sure to subscribe. Or, if you want, follow me on my Twitter account at @TheManiacSec to know when future videos are released, as well as some exclusive behind-the-scenes content of this channel and more. Anyways guys, I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Oh hey, I made it to the end of the video. If you want to see the previous Knock Reviews video that I did, then click on the left to see the April Fool's joke review I made for Roblox. Or if you don't care for reviews, click on the right to see what I predicted for Sony's E3 press conference. Anyways, I gotta save money up for Splatoon 2 when it comes out, so I'll see you guys soon.